Welcome everyone to Spoiler Warning, your premier exclusive wrestling news show. Our top story today will be around the possibility of a tag team match that's being pushed by the WWE as we speak. Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes on one side, two members of the Bloodline, The Rock and Roman Reigns on the other. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about why we're seeing trailers now for pro wrestling events. We're also going to be talking about the Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns match that, with a tag match being pushed, is still being planned. We're going to talk a little bit about another option that's not been discussed so much just yet. And then we're going to talk Drew McIntyre, his deal and his likely WrestleMania status. A little bit about Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada and Mercedes Moné going to AEW and why WWE didn't push harder. A little bit on WWE's response to Bayley and Matt Riddle as well. So quite a lot to get over. I am going to ask you guys to bring in your questions as much as you can. Let the chat flow. Let's get it going because we are trying to beat some records. Our last show, we had more than 100 likes and reached a 163 concurrent viewer. Fantastic numbers. We've started even stronger on this show. 31 likes already. Only two more gets us to that 33, which is our cutoff of 5 minutes past. So as I start going through this first piece of news, be sure to say hi, check in with each other as we start going over it. So let's start with this tag match. The Rock and Roman Reigns are firmly on the same page. This was confirmed by The Rock, who was forced to defend himself against complete garbage that was posted by a Fox News journalist. Entrapment and complete rubbish to attack The Rock over the last few days. For those who didn't see it, this is a Fox News journalist essentially attempting to get his 5 minutes of fame and succeeding because The Rock had to set him straight. He was accused essentially of having people boo him because of a response to a world crisis. It was a wrestling show. People are ridiculous. Anyway, the WWE Wrestlemania XL reveal trailer has dropped over the last few days, and if that's something you're interested in, you can be very excited because there's plenty more trailers like that coming. This is something they're introducing, Nick Khan and The Rock, similar to the press conferences, where they essentially have a mind to fill an entire Netflix live stream with WWE content. They want a Netflix section to essentially take over what the WWE network was, and that means 24/7 WWE, a whole channel on Netflix, and part of that will be reveal trailers, will be press conferences, and will be behind the scenes content that we've come to expect. You can expect a lot more trailers in the coming years, particularly for stadium shows like Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. You should also expect some for Saudi Arabia as well. Now let's get to the match. The pitch for The Rock and Triple H put together is still being actively developed as we speak. Nothing is currently finalized, but if you've seen that trailer, you know what they're trying to tease you with. The current leading pitch has WrestleMania opening with a tag team match. The Rock and Roman Reigns would take on Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, potentially with the heels winning. That means that Cody Rhodes would be defeated, likely pinned by The Rock at the start of WrestleMania. Now, Roman Reigns would still be defending the championship against Cody Rhodes in the main event of Night 2. Meaning that Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes would all be doing double duty. It also means that both World Championships are likely to feature on Night 2 instead of having a Night 1 Championship and a Night 2 Championship. This is also, by the way, why I've been reporting that Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch is back on the agenda as a Night 1 main event. There is every possibility that Night 1 ends with a tag match, The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. But there's also every possibility that that's the open of the show and The Rock and Roman Reigns bookmark the entire thing. There is one more option that hasn't really been mentioned yet, and I do want to mention it because it's definitely worth pointing out. There is a possibility that this tag team match is turned into a winner-take-all match, and it becomes the main event of WrestleMania. This is actively being discussed as we speak. There is a possibility that it would come down to whoever wins. Either Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes go home with both championships, Seth keeps his, Cody wins one, or The Rock and Roman Reigns, the bloodline even more strengthened, go home with both. Roman Reigns keeps his, The Rock wins the World Heavyweight Championship. This also makes it hugely interesting when you consider that Damian Priest could still be involved. Damian Priest and Finn Balor could potentially lose the Tag Team Championships, only to then win both the World Heavyweight and Undisputed WWE Championship by the end of WrestleMania. That's been mentioned at the moment. Let me know what your favourite pick is. Winner take all, tag match, or separate single main events for Roman and Cody and Seth Rollins and someone else. Because Seth Rollins would still be fighting in a separate match to defend his World Heavyweight Championship if it's not winner take all. We have plenty of news still to come. We're going to be talking Drew McIntyre, AEW signing of Mercedes Money, Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada. We're going to be talking Bayley and Matt Riddle as well. We're just over 5 minutes in. We have 90 people watching and 43 likes. 2 more gets us to 45. Just 2 more. So if you can, please do consider hitting that thumbs up button. We're almost halfway to 100 already. I'm going to take this opportunity just to promote the show, make sure everyone knows it's happening. So I'm going to pop over to my good old-fashioned Twitter account, and I'm just going to do a quote tweet of my announcement and say, "We are live now. Come and join us to find out more about what's happening in WWE." Nice and easy. Right, so let's get to the chat now because you guys have a lot of questions, I'm sure. And as you know, spoiler warning is all about answering those questions. If you've already asked a question and I haven't been able to answer it, please get it in one more time so that I can dive in and help you out with that one. So I'm going to start with Spider-Boss saying when Roman is on pay-per-view, he usually main events. Yes, he does. If he's doing double duty, that doesn't necessarily mean he'll main event both. Selvig prefers separate title matches. King Asa also prefers separate. Khalid prefers winner take all. Sai says, and thank you for this, Sai says, "Thanks Tom, I feel suitably informed on wrestling already. Thank you kindly." Ricky prefers separate tag matches. Marcel separate as well. Juan prefers winner take all. Everyone gets a humble pie, so everyone loses. Interesting. Spider-Boss says tag team winner take all of the bloodline winning, just my opinion. You don't need to suffix things with just my opinion. We all know that we have opinions here, guys, no worries. Ricky says, "Hey Tom, buddy, happy Monday." Happy Monday to you too, mate. Cal prefers separate matches. Brad just doesn't want winner take all. Matthew Johnson says separate matches. Priest deserves a successful cash-in. Khalid says, "I would want Miz and R-Truth to beat the Judgment Day at WrestleMania." Andrew says, "Hello Tom, hope you've had a great day. Also, any info of Hollywood Rock Persona happening, even though I sent that WrestleVotes tweet to you before?" I did see that. I saw that you sent the WrestleVotes tweet and immediately knew what it was. The only information I can give as to the Hollywood Rock Persona is that yes, that is a plan, and yes, that is what's happening. There's not much else to really say about it. Thomas says, winner take all doesn't make sense now that they've said that the winner of the men's chamber match faces Rollins at Mania. Selvig says, "Hello Tom, I want to know, is there any plan for Bron Breakker at Mania, and is Jade Cargill going to be part of Elimination Chamber?" There is no confirmed plan yet for Bron Breakker. However, I do find it likely they're going to slot him right into the role that Brock Lesnar was going to have against Gunther. The current feud that Gunther is having with Jey Uso will essentially last until Jimmy Uso says it does. That's just a way to try and heat up Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso going into WrestleMania, because even the WWE recognise that that's not working. Richard says, "Hello Tom, any news why Bobby's group doesn't have a solidified name yet?" So they've been pitched a number of names and they've always said, no, we're Bobby Lashley with Street Profits. The concern essentially is, and Bobby Lashley's the one fighting for this, he doesn't want a new name because the Street Profits already have a name, and he likes that they have a name, and he doesn't want to take that away from them. Crush says, one of the plans for the Tag Team Championships, Triple H is still at this point rebuilding the Tag Team division. Still rebuilding it at this point. You will note that they have new challenges for Elimination Chamber, and they also have quite a few different teams who could be competing with them in the near future. Those teams will be competing with them bit by bit. We're getting there. Bailey says, when do you see Damian Priest exiting Judgment Day? Either his decision or theirs. Personally, I think at the end of WrestleMania we'll see Judgment Day united, but it depends if Finn Balor signs a new deal, because if he doesn't, well, Judgment Day's going to get split. Ray says, I want to see Cody win the title from Roman. Andy Barr says, any news on NXT Europe? William Regal is working pretty much night and day to get NXT Europe off the ground. Some of the signings they were looking for, unfortunately, have not come to pass, particularly because AEW has hoovered up a lot of very talented UK individuals. There's a few who are currently signed to New Japan as well, particularly in the new version of Bullet Club and United Empire that WWE wanted and are not currently able to tie down. So there's still a bit of building work that needs to take place first. Hector says if they plan on doing a tag team match with the winner-take-all element, I feel like they'll need to figure it out soon because Seth's opponent is being determined at the Elimination Chamber. Seth's opponent would still continue. That would be the Night 1 match. Night 2 would still be winner-take-all, but potentially with Seth having no championship. Blue says, high time? It is time for a high. Welcome, Blue. What do you think of the dual brand elimination chambers? I think it's smart to get a lot of wrestlers from both brands on there. Triple H is not a fan of the split brand system. He would love to basically merge them all over again. However, let's just say Netflix aren't particularly keen on that, and Netflix are calling the shots right now. Cal says, does Jay potentially facing Gunter mean him versus Jimmy is more likely a SummerSlam match? Nope, because Jay versus Gunter is something they're building up for Monday Night Raw. Jimmy Uso will be involved, and that will heat up the match between Jay and Jimmy. It would take a major pivot to get away from that. That said, they've done a major pivot before. King Arthur says, hey Tom, do you see The Rock changing his theme song? Nope, he owns it. It's his. Blue says, if Jade is in the chamber, do you think it's her versus Bianca at Mania? I think that's more likely now, yes, though Nia Jax is still, let's just say, hovering over her in my mind as well. It's one worth keeping an eye on, I'll say that. We have 97 people watching, 57 likes, 3 more gets us to 60. We are well on the road to that 100. Please do continue to hit like if you haven't already. Well, so according to your tweet from Sunday afternoon, Tom, Mercedes Money is probably the only free agent AEW outbid for, unlike Ospreay and Okada. WWE pushed harder for Mercedes Money, unlike the other two. Outbid? Not quite. Fought hard? Yes. WWE did not push particularly hard for Ospreay and Okada, but there'll be more for that later. Spider-Boss says, what's the point of keeping the Money in the Bank briefcase on Damian Priest? Priest basically doesn't cash in on Seth because Seth isn't medically cleared. Because Seth isn't medically uncleared for the rest of time. Cal says, you've answered my question already. Thanks, Tom. It's crazy how they haven't started the Jimmy versus Jay hype yet. They have. They firmly have. So they started the hype at SummerSlam when Jimmy turned on Jay, even though Jimmy was the one who turned on Roman to begin with. Made no sense. They followed it up with Royal Rumble. That was supposed to be the launching pad. Didn't go their way. Crush says, I just can't wait for the coloured straps to go away. Crush says, I can see Finn Balor leaving for AEW or even Japan. My suspicion would be that if Finn Balor does leave, and I think he's more likely to than a number of names currently negotiating, he would go to AEW under the provision that he can also wrestle in New Japan. Blue says, do you think one of the reasons Triple H doesn't want to split the tag titles is he likes less titles, so he doesn't feel the need to cram so many title matches on PLEs? Yes, that is exactly why. He doesn't feel the pressure to split any of the championships. He wanted a separate world title because there was no world title on Raw. He was under pressure to do so. It did not come down to his decision. Richard says, hello Tom, any chance Indy Hartwell makes the EC card, maybe against the Kabuki Warriors? Nope. Khalid says, I really hope Finn Balor re-signs with WWE. He's my favourite wrestler. Khalid, would you follow him to AEW? Genuine question, which I find interesting. Just a question for all of you. I think this is a spot-on time for it. If, let's say, Drew McIntyre leaves, let's say Finn Balor leaves, and they go to AEW, would you follow them? Ricky Fawn says, will Jade have a match at WrestleMania? Yes, she will. I was the first to report, back in November that she'd be debuting at the Royal Rumble. Funnily enough, in the days before the Royal Rumble, suddenly that news was everywhere. Daniela says, good evening, Tom. Hope you're well. Is there any stuff on why Dragon Lee has been off TV recently? Started off hot on SmackDown, then went to a pointless North American title win NXT. Now he's nowhere. So the reports from Dave Meltzer that it was a full-time call-up were, let's just say, wide of the mark. And in many ways, a guess. He was brought up to essentially fill a couple of holes and a couple of gaps, give them some high-quality wrestling matches with a decent quality face to root for, particularly while Rey Mysterio was injured, while Carlito was out of action, and they just needed a few bodies who could definitely hit some good high spots and keep a crowd excited. Now, they no longer require that. They've had some more people up. Karrion Kross is getting a bit of a push, and they're also focusing more on more of the women's division as well. LF says, Rock and Roman will be on SmackDown this Friday. What do you think might happen? I think they're going to find their way towards Cody Rhodes. But Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins are on Raw. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. Hello Sean, how are you, mate? Chris says, do you think The Rock will be the reason Roman loses his titles? Nope. I think Roman Reigns will lose his titles and The Rock will be very upset about it. The dude says, evening Tom and chat. Any info on how long the Peacock deal is with WWE? I imagine they'll want to move everything to Netflix once they can. Internationally, everything will be moved to Netflix, but when it comes to the Peacock deal, I believe it's got over a year left after the time the Netflix deal kicks in. Hector, no, The Rock will come out to his normal theme tune. Cal says Scott D'Amore didn't deserve how it went down. Well, I am not going to speculate on that one, because it's not my place to say what may or may not have happened backstage. Sean says, did WWE push hard for Jay White? They pushed for Jay White. Pushing hard is harder to say. Khalid says, I'm glad Elimination Chamber is coming at 10 a.m. That's when I wake up. I don't wake up at 10 a.m. I'll wake up at 7:30, but I'll be hosting a live watch party for Elimination Chamber at a very, very early time in the day, and I'll have my entire Saturday to enjoy. Spider-Boss says, I think a babyface like Cody needs a heel authority figure that screws him. Nick Aldis would do certainly a very good job at that. Chris says, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Chris. Lovely to see you. Razar says, is The Rock wrestling at WrestleMania? I thought he'd be in Roman's corner in the match or a ref or something. They are definitely getting The Rock lined up to wrestle at WrestleMania. He's back training, ready to wrestle at WrestleMania. To my knowledge, and I believe I'm the only person who's reported this, The Rock is lined up for a number of additional matches. So it will not be a one and done for The Rock. He's getting back to match fitness, and there's a lot of people in WWE currently trying very hard to make that happen. Leon says, Will Ospreay said recently he turned down a WWE contract and signed with AEW instead. He did indeed. Chris says, I don't think Bayley should trust Dakota Kai. If you've been following my Twitter, you'll know why not. Michael says, Lashley versus Bronson Reed tonight. Do you believe Lashley makes it into the chamber? Yes. I believe he's too big a name to leave out. As much as a huge opportunity that would be for Bronson Reed, Bobby Lashley has nothing else to really do. The only thing that could happen is Karrion Kross basically doing a run-in, which again could happen. I'm just not going to love it as a concept. King either says, hey Tom, I can see Cody losing at WrestleMania because of The Rock, doing Cody versus The Rock at SummerSlam. Can you see this happening? The first part, no. The second part, yes. Michael says, I try not to comment a whole lot about WWE booking because I don't watch it, but it seems like they waited too long for a Jimmy J match. Yes, I agree with that, and I think that's something we were talking about here months ago. They did it at SummerSlam, they were planning to save it to WrestleMania, it was far too long. Leon would follow people to AEW. Selvik says the same, I would follow Finn or Drew if they go to New Japan or AEW. Juan says, I would follow Drew and Finn to AEW, they fit well there too. Daniela says, no, just not interested in AEW, which is also fair. Khalid says, I will still watch WWE. Nice mixed responses there. Love to see it. Blue already watches AEW, but fast forwards through much of it, would probably watch Drew and Finn. Brad says, I watch both WWE and AEW anyway, so yes. Roger Wood follows his favourite to any company. Fair enough, I appreciate that. Mark says, hey Tom, just went back to the beginning, saw what you said about the tag match and Priest. Would like to see a tag match. Seth Cody win it all. Seth is really hurt, then the night after Mania, there's more to come. Priest cashes in on beating up Seth and wins. More on that very shortly. Spider-Boss says, with the exception of his match versus Seth, every time Jey Uso had a title match, Jimmy got involved, costing Jey the title. Chris says, I'd probably check out AEW if Drew and Balor did go over there just out of curiosity. Crush believes Dragon Lee will officially be called up after Mania. That your opinion, Crush? Because you're phrasing it like it's a fact. Hector says, I wouldn't follow them directly as in watch AEW weekly program because I'm just not a fan of their product, but I'll watch clips and wish the best for them. To be fair, if you're watching clips, that gives AEW an opportunity to convince you to come on over, baby. Sean says, Charlotte said to CNBC she's currently ahead of schedule with recovery after undergoing surgery. That does not surprise me at all that she said that, especially when you consider all of the content, the videos, the pictures that we've seen. She is massively ahead of schedule. Eric doesn't like the winner-take-all concept, believe it diminishes the chase of the title that Cody is making. Cal says, I don't think so, I don't find AEW fun, boring in my opinion, however I understand why people would enjoy. Joey says, hey Tom, why aren't they planning to do the triple threat match at Mania? What triple threat match is that? Crush says, AEW sure is doing well with all of these game changes. They haven't debuted yet, mate, give them a shot. Edge debuted, that was awkward. Blue says, Peacock deal was for 5 years, starting WrestleMania 37, so I think the deal goes to March 2026, which is just over a year after the Netflix deal kicks in. Thank you, Blue, for giving extra clarification there. Joey says, SRS confirmed what you said, that he expects Okada to sign with AEW. Yep, it's another example, and this is happening quite a lot recently, of seeing the Fightful paywall, the Wrestling Observer paywall, the PWInsider paywall, confirming something that you got here for free weeks or at times months ago. I'm very proud of what we do here. Very proud indeed. We have 112 people watching, 63 likes, 2 more, gets us to 65. If we can keep that train going, I'll be a very happy boy. Camo Gods, welcome to say, Tom, cheers to another day. Cheers to you. Bailey says, given his poor reputation, why hasn't Jay White been a bigger... his prior reputation, I should say. Why hasn't Jay White been a bigger deal in AEW? Because of the booking. The biggest problem... In fact, let me get to that in a moment. Daniela says, why do you reckon Logan Paul isn't defending his US title Elimination Chamber and instead they're putting him in a qualifying match? It makes the US title look unimportant. It'll be weird to see Paul on SmackDown. I don't believe Logan Paul will win his match because of Kevin Owens. I don't believe Kevin Owens will win his match because of Logan Paul. And just like that, we get a US Championship match. Noob, I'm not sure what you're saying, but if you're saying what I think you're saying, we're going to need to talk about it. Kelly says, if Finn Balor goes to another wrestling company, I'll still watch WWE. Juan says, Bayley will win at WrestleMania, but for now, she's sad her 49ers lost the Super Bowl last night. Fair enough. People can be sad. Crush thinks Finn Balor should have won the world title at SummerSlam. He did. The Universal title. Ed says, why would anyone trust Dakota Kai? Did you all miss what she did to her best friend Tegan in NXT War Games? Chris says, I have a bad feeling Dakota Kai is going to cost Bayley the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 40. We'll be talking about that later, guys. I've already walked you through this. I'm going to walk you through it one more time just to be sure. Joey says, since he said before WWE are hesitant to push Drew because he hasn't signed a new deal, who do you see winning the Chamber? More on Drew McIntyre shortly. Ross says, I only watch AEW occasionally, but I like Finn and Drew. Sean says, it's confusing to know what happened on Rampage this week. Did Ruby turn face or did Saraya? No idea. Mark says, I won't watch them on AEW, but if they get money, who cares where they're at? Fair. Khalid says, I'd say the Judgment Day turning on Finn Balor for the Raw after WrestleMania. I don't see a turn having to happen, really. Joey says, do you think the NXT vignettes could be for the AJPW champ Nakajima? Quite possibly, yes. Ray says, I just want to see Charlotte Flair make a return ASAP. So does she. Joey's talking about The Rock. I'm going to need clarification on that one, mate. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. What a Wiggly, nice to see you. Michael says, I think Jay White's booking has been just fine. I think when it comes to how people are viewing him, I did expect him to go in a little higher up the card. He has had a championship match. He does have his Bullet Club around him. He has been key and focused on. This is all good stuff. But I do think that, again, more on that shortly. Spider-Man says, SRS doesn't like you. True, he doesn't. I don't like him either. But he confirms all your reports about Mercedes' money. Yeah, but he never mentions me, does he? Sovik, where have you got that from? No, Wiggly, I don't watch American football, primarily because of the little foot involved in it. Roger says, Dean Ambrose, Fandango and EC3 were pitched for Heath Slater's 3MB faction source Wrestling News. The headline is sourced from Wrestling News, but they got that information from someone else. King Azza says, hey Tom, I can see it. Cody wins, then Roman asks The Rock for a rematch the night after WrestleMania 40. Rock abuses power and Roman wins the belt back. That would be shocking. Okay, but why does it have to be shocking? Sometimes it can just be, you know, satisfying. Daniela says, anything on Andrade not being on Raw last week? He signed with Raw 2 weeks ago. Bit of a slow start for him, isn't it? The plans are already firmly in place for WrestleMania. They're not planning to push people who aren't directly involved in that. Andrade is back. Andrade got the pop of the Royal Rumble. Andrade will be featured, but he won't be featured at the top level. Mark says, I saw your video about Drew the other day. It was brilliant how you broke everything down. Thank you kindly, Mark. The Drew McIntyre video is doing fantastic. In fact, the channel in general, doing amazing stuff. And I want to take a moment to thank some people at this point in time. Particularly, I want to send a thank you out to our very own Mick Henno, which many of you will have seen him in posting here. Some of you will know who that is. Mick approached me quite a long time ago now to ask if he could translate my news into German and present it on his channel to a German audience. I said, yes, absolutely, as long as I'm sourced. And he's made a point of sourcing me and approaching me if any of his viewers have any questions, which I can then answer. So I do want to say a massive thank you to him. I believe in the last few days, the posts that Mick has made sharing my news have directly contributed to 11 subscribers on this channel. 11 new subscribers on this channel. Mick's work might also be a large part of why spoiler warning has been so successful lately. If you are someone who runs a wrestling channel, or if you have a Twitter or anything like that, and you want to share my news, please don't be afraid to do so. Don't be afraid to do so. Which naturally also means that I have to mention the other side of that coin. Christoph, the wrestling informer, who recently has been caught and screenshotted multiple times now, taking my news and basically trying to get credit and clout for it. Now, the truth will always out. The truth will always out. So I just want to warn people ahead of time. When it comes to Christoph, a number of screenshots have come my way. Please do continue to send them in the Discord and in individual DMs, guys. I much appreciate it. And I'm saving them. And I will wait for the right moment. And Christoph, you can build your clout. Go nuts. Build your channel to the biggest that it can possibly be. And when you share a piece of my news and your name is everywhere, that's when I'll post every single screenshot. Every single one. Okay? Okay, pumpkin? Because I promise you, you're going to advertise my work, whether you like it or not. Moving on. Spiderboss says Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox and Raquel Rodriguez. She could turn on Bailey. Sean says I think those vignettes could be for Julia. To my knowledge, it's not, but I've never really had much Julia news. LFUK says if Jimmy cost Jay a shot at the IC title, surely that can kick their feud into gear for WrestleMania. That's the hope. Marcel says, do you see Liv getting her revenge on Rhea and costing her the match at Mania? No connection whatsoever. Thank you, Sovik, for sourcing. I'm interested to hear that. I still personally believe that LA Knight will be the one, but hey, it means that Sami Zayn will get an opportunity. Sami Zayn was being kept in reserve for Drew McIntyre, but things may have changed for Drew McIntyre. Ross hopes that Finn re-signs with WWE. Interesting. Thank you, Andrew, for double-checking that for me. Cody, welcome back to Say Tom. Nice to see you, mate. Sean says, Tom, did you see Brock was replaced in the opening intro by LA Knight? Yes, I did indeed. Another piece of news that I've been way ahead of. Koo says, love your videos, Tom. Amazing work. Thank you, Koo43. I appreciate you. DM Hunk, nice to see you, says, I hope Drew McIntyre leaves WrestleMania as world champion with his heel work just top notch. Sean says, for your next Fun Fact Thursday, you should do Alexa Bliss. Interesting, Sean. Thank you for that suggestion. I'll certainly consider that. I basically pick them as and when. The whole point of the Fun Fact Thursdays is not necessarily to be massive view getters when they're launched. The idea is that they will constantly feed people to my channel, and they're actively doing so. So the amount of viewership I get from the search bar is massively increasing. That also works for Google search, for example. So people are finding my channel who aren't necessarily that involved in wrestling, and that's a wonderful thing. Hello, Mick. Nice to see you. Cal says, obviously WWE trying to... Pardon me one sec, guys. Cal says, obviously WWE trying to do a lot to get Drew to re-sign a new contract. I hope he really does sign. He's doing some of his best work ever at the moment. Spiderboss says, I remember Roman previously said we're going to fix him in reference to Nick Aldis. That could work for Nick Aldis turning into a heel GM. Leon celebrates Bray Wyatt's first world title reign. And that's why I have to say that. Alex to say, hello, Alex. Mick says, thank you, and hey, hope you're very good, and thank you very much for that. No worries, Mick. If anyone does speak German and they want a translation, he's your guy. He really is. Mick, you're actively doing wonders for my social media presence, and your success is directly contributing to my success. This is a very good working relationship that I'm very happy with. I can give news that you can use. You use that news to grow your platform, and that also grows my platform. Everyone's a winner. Spiderboss says, for the next fun fact, could you do Mercedes money? Oh, we have some disagreements. David Azaround Christoph says he does. He says it word for word the way you say it. Yes, indeed, he does. Joey says, have you considered taking legal action against this Christoph account for stealing your reports? Nope, because here's the thing. I believe in free press. I believe in free news. And thus he is not stealing. Now, if he gains monetary gain from my news, you better believe I'm coming his way. You better believe it. Because he's making it easy. Eric says, if what you reported last week about WWE not wanting to push Liv is correct, I'd be down if Zoe won tonight. She's fresher, and I feel like WWE higher-ups are super behind her right now. Quite possibly, yes, that would give Liv Morgan a story going into WrestleMania because she'd be worried about not getting on the card, which could lead towards that good old-fashioned tag team getting back together. I feel she needs a story more than anything else right now. C-Max says, good evening, Tom. I think Finn would do well in AEW. TK loves pushing the smaller guys. Adam Cole, Finn Balor, they've got magic. Thank you, Cal. Appreciate you. Brad says, well said, Tom. No worries, Chris. You're a good guy, and I know that. Christoph used to be a regular here. And then he decided that he was annoyed that I wasn't giving him credit for re-reporting what I was already saying. Yeah, I'm a complete dick when I'm angry, Mark, just so everyone knows. Alan says, did you see WrestleVote say Cody Crybaby merch might be coming? Yes, I did. Some people will definitely buy it. Bismo says, Tom, you should throw out some fake news his way and see if he posts it. That would mean saying something here in this medium, which I believe to be wrong. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to do it. By the way, we have 69 likes, which is nice. One more to 70. Be the one, guys. Joey says, do you know which wrestlers have been discussed to replace Brock for Gunther at Mania? Jey Uso was indeed discussed if the Jimmy Uso thing wasn't working out. Drew McIntyre was briefly discussed, but there was also a different discussion for him. Braun Breaker has been discussed, and there's others who potentially could be involved, such as, for example, Ricochet. Wants to say, Tom, going to Tony Khan himself, he keeps talking about a massive TV rights deal, yet no movement whatsoever. Cap, or is TK scared to flat out say there's no suitors? Warner Brothers Discovery have given him every indication that a deal is coming. That a deal is coming. Dane says it stinks that on Thursday Rocky Maivia got everyone's hopes up. It's like he gets off on angering Cody Rhodes fans so much for getting a Universal title shot at WrestleMania. Dane is living the life and I absolutely love it. Sean says, do you think if Cody loses to Roman again, he's done and won't be a top guy? I don't think anything is ever that final. DM says, who do you think will beat Guns for the IC title and when do you think that will happen? I'm really genuinely not sure. Personally, I think he drops the title without actually losing a match, and so it should be. Khalid says, do you see Braun Strowman returning soon? Not necessarily soon, but I'm confident that he will return within this year. Roger says, who's your favourite YouTuber to watch? I watch a lot of Smosh stuff, to be honest. I find it funny. Cody says, how do you feel about the ensemble of talent that are involved in EC qualifying? Find it interesting that Ivar, Bronson, Dominic and Logan got included in that bracket. It is a amalgamation and quite a mix, and Triple H is very good at these mixes of people who could do very well in the area, first and foremost, as well as people who have genuinely been doing good, if not necessarily getting the credit for it. Ivar, for example. Alyssa says, is winner take all tag match main event WrestleMania what going on tag team match can have match Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber will have mostly Elimination Chamber matches and will be built heavily around Rhea Ripley. Bailey says, when do you see Alexa Bliss coming back? Whenever the hell she wants, and not a moment before. John Gillis says, apparently from Zero News, Roma versus Cody isn't happening. It is a tag match. Funny that, isn't it? I've reported what I've reported, and you'll note that I've not reported that. Certainly, when you say Zero News, does anyone believe it anymore? King Azza says, hey Tom, if Punk never got injured, it would be Punk versus Seth, The Rock versus Roman. Where would that leave Cody if that was the case? A very good question. Mustafa says, speaking of German, Elimination Chamber is branded as no escape in Germany, and so it should be. Given the history there, in many ways that's just protecting people from harsh reminders. Carl says, I wonder the WWE will deal with Cody if he does win. How long reign would be? I doubt there'll be a long title reign run after Roman, but again, Cody's the biggest star besides Punk. I do wonder. The WWE consider Cody Rhodes to be the big babyface, the top name on the company and in the industry. Michael Finn's contract expires shortly after WrestleMania, as is true of many as well. DM says, do you think Cody will finish the story at WrestleMania? Personally, yes, I do. Hey KJ, how you doing, mate? Andrew says, the last time Rock wrestled at Philadelphia at WrestleMania was WrestleMania 15 against Stone Cold for the WWF title when someone tried to screw Stone Cold the WWF title, but Steve won the title. Aled says, do you know if Okada has signed a contract with AEW yet? More on that shortly. Zane says, what is the WrestleMania match you're least looking forward to? Jay versus Jimmy. Sean says, do you see Jade in the chamber? Yes, I do. KJ says, any word on Sheamus? Meltzer and whoever else used to say he'd be back anytime soon, like PWInsider and AJ Styles. I have said that I also am confident he'll be back anytime soon. I believe at this point in time he is cleared, but he's staying out of the way of the success that Pete Dunne and Rich Holland are currently having. XCon Don is asking for news on Jacob Fatu. Unfortunately, I have no news on Jacob Fatu at this point in time. KJ says, I can see Drew winning the Chamber, but I'd love for Orton to win. Khalid says, LA Knight will have his first match on Raw. I will be watching. John says, zero news strikes again. Spider-Boss says, when zero news appears, I see Brad Shepard written all over it. Well, he was ghostwriting for them for quite a while, and may still be. KJ says, Zero just fighting against what's happening because the press conference ruined his reports of Rock versus Roman. It's clear as to what happened, but he won't admit it, and he fails to understand. Yeah, when you go into that level of extreme self-preservation, you know you've done something wrong. Cal says, I have a feeling Punk will go off once he's back. He could have an unbelievable run. More on that shortly. KJ says, Triple H obviously said Rock down and say... I don't understand that, KJ, gotta be honest. Sat Rock down and said, we have to finish our story. Gotcha. Leon says, Fightful confirmed your Ricardo report from a few months ago that it's expected to be AEW bound. Yes, indeed, they did. Behind a paywall, months afterwards. Alyssa says, why are called Roman Reigns champions, WWE champion and changing titles, not called the Universal Champion anymore? I can clarify this one, Alyssa. Roman Reigns defends the Universal Championship, but Cody Rhodes does not challenge for the Universal Championship. The branding of Universal Champion only applies to Roman Reigns so that he can keep his record streak going. The second someone else wins it, the Universal goes away. You missed some of it, Number of the Devil. I will recap the top story, and there's plenty more to come. KJ clarifies it's actually his second match for LA on Raw. Cal says, here's the question, Tom. Obviously, we can only speculate. Do you think Will Ospreay's style would work in the WWE? Yes, because that's also Seth Rollins' style. John says, hello, Tom. What is your take on the vignettes in NXT? They're cool. Spider-Boss says, babyfaces Eddie Guerrero and Jeff Hardy waited to have their moment, but now people want Cody to finish his story. Chris says, I think Bayley will beat Io Sky for the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 40, and then Dakota Kai turn on Bayley, face Dakota Kai for the WWE Women's Championship at SummerSlam. So you're saying that Dakota Kai turns on Bayley? Right, okay. Let me get to the news now, because we're saying a lot of stuff, and I've already got news on it. So, Drew McIntyre. We have 121 people watching, 72 likes, 3 more gets us to 75. We've been live for 37 minutes, looking like we might not reach that 100. Can you help? Because if you can, I'd appreciate it. Drew McIntyre is still currently the favourite to win the Elimination Chamber and face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. This would be in... what's the word? This would be in contradiction to the idea of the winner-take-all tag match, but as I say, nothing has been finalised at this point in time. If Drew McIntyre does sign a new deal, he may still win the match, but Damian Priest seems most likely to come away with the gold. Seth Rollins would take a break afterwards, leaving McIntyre versus Priest, and there is a pitch on the table in which McIntyre does win the championship, leading to a championship feud for CM Punk upon his return. If you've watched this week's WTF Wrestling, you'll know what I think the odds are, but let's clarify that situation right now. Personally, and this is my opinion, I believe that Drew McIntyre has already signed a new deal with the WWE. I believe that the changes that have had to be made to the WrestleMania card means that Drew McIntyre will likely be a World Heavyweight Champion in 2024. At the very least, the WWE are confident that they can make that happen and give him something which will make him happy. So I believe, personally, Drew McIntyre has signed a new deal. With this in mind, the match against Seth Rollins is an obvious given, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. The work that Drew McIntyre is doing, the fact that he's able to point to the success of his merch, etc., shows me that he is definitely worth every penny that he wants. Sorry guys, just getting some juice. Now, it's been pointed out before, and will be pointed out again, that Drew McIntyre wants championships. Now, of course, championships may well be on the table, and suddenly he seems a lot more invested in turning up and making things happen. So that's the Drew McIntyre news. I'll catch up with the chat a little more, and then we'll dive into the AEW signings, and then there's a little more still to come about Bayley, Damage Control, and Matt Riddle. Cody says, for my own self-preservation, I hope Cody doesn't win the title this year, to back up my claim 2 years ago that it would be 3 years before he tastes a world title. Self-fulfilling prophecies. Number of the Devil says, do you think Jade Cargill versus Bianca is going to happen at this year's WrestleMania? Quite possibly yes, but that would mean a big loss for Bianca after all. Roger says, Matt Riddle has captured his first professional wrestling championship since his release from WWE, source eWrestling News. KJ says they better lock him up. AEW is getting Ospreay, Okada and Mercedes. WWE should lock down anyone who's expiring soon. When we get to that news, you'll understand why they're doing so. Blue says, I agree on Drew, especially with all the new screen time and merch. Spider-Boss says, I see the Judgment Day kicking out Damian Priest after he wins the title. Apart from there have been tensions between Priest and Rhea. Cody says, DM Punk with the CM Punk merch already is playing long game to when he'll be champion and face Punk when he's healthy. DM says, thanks for Drew McIntyre news, great work. Thank you kindly. Gold says, hello Tom, how are you today? Doing very well, thank you Gold, welcome to the show. And Jordan says, Drew deserves his championship moment in front of the fans. He's doing great work on this heel run. Let's get then to the next piece of news as regards the AEW signings. Once we get through this news, we will be recapping the top story. 77 likes, 3 more to 80. Let's keep that train going, guys. Let's keep that train going. There's a lot of hype right now about AEW signing 3 big free agents. Mercedes Money, Will Ospreay, and Kazuchika Okada. And while there are arguments to be made that each one individually might not put a huge amount of extra eyes on the product, the 3 in combination appeal to a wide variety of markets. Also, none of them appeal to the same people that Edge appeals to. So I do find it interesting that we have this combination. I do feel that they could definitely make an impact with AEW going forwards. These signings will probably help get a good TV deal. Firstly, I'm proud to say regular viewers will have known all of this way ahead of time. Way ahead of time. I gave you every possible step that I knew about Mercedes Money. I said Will Ospreay is going to AEW. I said Kazuchika Okada is going to AEW. These are the moments that are actually happening, and hopefully I'm able to give back to you what you give to me in investing time. So I feel a duty to inform here, and also I feel I should be scrutinized if I don't. So I hope that's something that you guys can value. None of the 3 mentioned were ever very close to joining WWE. Mercedes Money had potential, but WWE weren't particularly confident that they'd get it over the line, particularly because Nick Khan couldn't guarantee that she would be wrestling under Mercedes Money. He wanted her to go back to using the name Sasha Banks. Okada and Ospreay were on the WWE radar, offers were made, but WWE didn't work particularly hard to get them. The WWE are confident that as of right now, anyone who doesn't want to come to WWE is making the wrong choice. The WWE, particularly Nick Khan, believes that they are by far the biggest game in town, and anyone who chooses not to stay with them is making the wrong call. This is ego, this is arrogance, it's also not necessarily wrong. The WWE can 100% provide a much larger platform than any other wrestling promotion. Not only that, but they can bring in the people that they want, and ultimately if they miss out on anyone, they have a production line which is working to create people like Bron Breakker, people like Gunter. The WWE have absolute confidence in their own future and are not at all worried about losing anyone along the way. Pardon me. Andrew says apparently Tony Khan has or did urge Dustin Rhodes to help Cody finish his story this year via Ringside News. If it's via Ringside News, chances are it's wrong. JJ says, hey Tom, Becky said in an interview that it depends on what's best for her future when mentioning her contract. Do you think she'll let it run out and take a break before re-signing? I've mentioned this before, but I'd love to reiterate. As regards both Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, both are currently actively in negotiations. What they're looking for is limited dates. Limited dates and still an amount of money that recognises their position on the card. I'm confident they will get that. They are simply 2 strong commodities, but they are looking for limited dates so they get a little more family time, and they've both been very open about that. I'm confident that they will take a break after WrestleMania. There is no belief from the WWE that either of them will sign anywhere else. Even if they don't sign anywhere for 6 months, the WWE are confident that they will eventually be able to work out a deal. Alex says, I saw your tweet about the Mercedes Money account. They are funny. For anyone who hasn't seen this, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, please do so. There's a number of different comments from one person claiming to be both Mercedes Money and Mercedes Money's boyfriend, Ted. It is the work of the most delusional mind, and also slightly scary. Cal says, WWE don't have to worry about other companies signing people. They have the 4 biggest stars in the business and could argue in general. Spider-Boss says, I'd rather prefer Drew as world champion instead of Cody finishing his story. Well, you might get both. Daniela says, smash the like button if you haven't already. Thank you, Daniela. We're up to 82 likes now, close to that 100. Razar, the Bailey news is right after I catch up with the chat. Cal says, remember, Tom only speaks facts, #1 journalist in the game. Thank you, Cal. Spider-Boss says there was a sold out in the pre-sale for AEW Big Business Show on the TD Garden in Boston. Boston wants some money, and they will absolutely get it. That show is being looked at as a soft relaunch. There will be a lot of news coming out about it very soon. Blue says, I love Okada and Ospreay, but outside of AEW's core audience, who else do they appeal to? Well, Okada appeals heavily to a Japanese audience, which will bring Japanese fans in, and some of them are very die-hard and spend quite a bit of money. As regards Will Ospreay, there is a huge fandom to anyone who's a fan of cruiserweight wrestling, who's a fan of British wrestling, and who knows the name Ospreay just in general from a lot of his indie developments like his work with Rev Pro. That is not the same as AEW's core audience, though I do agree there's a lot of overlap. David, no news on Tama Tonga at this point in time. Blue says WWE's roster is already loaded and they are much better at making stars. I'd love to see some of these names there, but they definitely don't need them. KJ says Triple H, in my opinion, has a you're either with us or against us mentality. Not entirely true. He has a you're either with us or you're not important to the actual booking of the company mentality, which is absolutely fair. Triple H still checks in with a lot of people in AEW because he likes them as people. Razar says it's interesting that Will Ospreay got to sign with AEW before his New Japan deal ended, but Okada waited till after his New Japan deal ended. Okada chose to do that out of respect for the company. Spider-Boss says it seems the smartest Khan in wrestling is Tony, Ospreay, Jay White, Okada, Mercedes, Moné. WWE only got Jade and CM Punk. Also Cody, if you're mentioning Jay White there as well. DM says, could you see Brock Lesnar going to AEW? Nope. Tony Khan does not want him, to my knowledge. Alex says, I just hope the booking in AEW gets better now with the new signings. If it doesn't, I don't know anymore for AEW. And see, this is my concern. My concern is that right now, and I've said this before, Tony Khan is the only one really working on the booking side. And he's massively overloaded and massively stressed. The CM Punk situation essentially led to a real lack of trust from him. And this has meant that he's just trying to do it all on his own. He's been a breaking point for a long time. Andrew says, anything on Sting? Are WWE interested in bringing him back? Nope, not even slightly. Daniela says, do you see Trick versus Mello main eventing Stand and Deliver? Probably, yes. Cody says, I feel Swerve's recent interview of why he turned down WWE's return offer makes sense. Different talent want different levels of creative input. It's nice to have multiple companies for this. Yes, it is. There is a lot more freedom in AEW, but that does come with a risk that what you're pitching doesn't make it to TV. Leon says, I'm sure they're happy with signing Pillman Jr. over Ospreay and Okada. There is no over, there is no we beat you to this. There is this person signed with us, so I'm going to worry about this person. This person didn't sign to us, so I'm not going to worry about them. Daz says, Tom, is Seth on Raw tonight, do you know? I believe he is, yes. Michael says, some people out there think Mercedes would sign for a year or less. Wouldn't make any bit of sense for TK to want anything that short term. Though I will repeat, it is, after all, going to be a limited day contract. And Number of the Devil, yes, I do. KJ says the Ringside News article was Dustin liking a tweet saying they'd do anything to see Arn and Dustin ringside with Cody at Mania. RSN took it and said Tony Khan urged too. Obvious clickbait and misleading. Thank you, KJ, for clarifying. We have a very well-informed chat here, and I'm a very happy boy about it. Cal says Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair feels like that's inevitable. In my opinion, I really hope we see it. Charlotte's been asking for that one for a while. Alex says a lot of speculating Okada will debut at the Big Business Show alongside Mercedes. Do you know anything about when Okada will debut? We'll be hearing about it shortly as to when that debut takes place. To my knowledge, it's not been finalised yet. Daniela says, what do you think of the new tag team on SmackDown of Ashanti the Adonis and Cedric Alexander? I think it very much fits the bill of what Triple H is building, of small, quick, scrappy guys going into tag team wrestling. KJ says there's only a 6k capacity. They've got to at least do 10k in that big time arena, especially with the way they're hyping it. Alyssa says, had big problems. Liv Morgan don't care about being champions. Daniela says they're both talented, so I'm excited to see how their team goes. How their team does, sorry. One says, out of the free signings, Mercedes Money is the only one that will bring AEW casuals. Yes. They don't really want casuals. Then he says, in an appearance in the Lavac and Goz podcast, Tony Khan was asked about potentially working a wrestling match in the future. He said, I don't think anyone really wants to see that. I agree, and I'm glad he can spot that. Yes, Cal, I did indeed. DM says, I think CM Punk wanted Tony to fire him, so he comes back to WWE. There is certainly circumstantial evidence that supports that. Blue says, when you say Japanese fans, do you mean in Japan? How does that affect AEW in terms of ratings in the US? Same with Will. I think this is why all their signings outside of Punk fade quick. Bryan Danielson didn't necessarily fade quick, but it did fade. What I will say is, as regards fans of New Japan, I'm a fan of New Japan. I'm more likely to watch AEW now knowing that Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada are going to be there. The thing I should point out, though, good wrestling isn't enough anymore. I've mentioned this a few times. And they're building their entire brand on entertaining wrestling. That's not enough. Spiderball says, when do you think Adam Cole could get medically cleared? Whenever a doctor says it's time. Blue says, if AEW doesn't want casuals, why do they act like they do? I don't believe they necessarily do. Michael says, I personally, as both an AEW fan and a wrestling fan in general, do not give a single about casual fans. Yeah, AEW does not brand itself to casuals. It brands itself as the hardcore show, as the one for wrestling fans. That has brought itself positives and negatives, and I've said for a long time, I believe the biggest downfall of AEW is their absolute lack of retention rate and their lack of appeal to casual viewers. But if they can survive with the numbers that they've got, why not appeal to the people who are spending all the money? Sovic says, does WWE and TKO Group playing cheap when it comes to negotiating free agents or any type of signing? Note the WWE are confident that they're giving a fair rate, and ultimately it is a very good rate. AEW can afford more, but they're also not profitable, and AEW, to my knowledge, has never been profitable. They are bankrupting themselves. AEW are bankrupting themselves, essentially, in order to afford what they're doing. Daniela says, Ricochet and Apollo could be a decent team, but I don't think Ricochet would trust him after what happened with him and Cedric. Aled says, personally, just my opinion, I think Mercedes won't be afraid to walk out if AEW creative isn't up to her standards. If she walked out of WWE, I believe she'd walk out of AEW. Quite possibly, yes, though Tony Khan would then CM Punk her. Kevin says, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Kevin. I don't get why TK doesn't have a booking committee with all of the vets he's got on the roster, especially Danielson, Copeland, Samoa Joe, among the others. I think the CM Punk thing really did a number on him. Alyssa says, Liv Morgan feel like heel, don't care about what shirt means, cry about feel heel. People sick have her moments. Spiderball says, I enjoy watch AEW. WWE's booking gives me a headache. Blair says, Tom, when will you get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Never. I would imagine that Triple H is not going to induct journalists like me. Roger says, would you ever go to WrestleMania? Yeah, probably. Cal says, honestly, maybe it's just me, but I see AEW going the same way TNA did. TNA, to be fair, are still there and competed genuinely with the WWE for a number of years. Gold says, you can't succeed with hardcore fans. Look at their weak attendance every week. They've done okay so far. They just need a few people who bring hardcores with them. Mercedes Money, for example. Rosal says, I don't think Mercedes can be fumbled in AEW. They don't have anyone like her. It's not really possible for her to get lost in the shuffle. I guess we'll see how it goes. DM says, The Rock should have won a second Rumble in his prime because the era when it was the botch Big Show with the Big Show. The Big Show should have won. Botch big time with Big Show. Big Show should have won. Big Show did win. Yeah, there was a lot going on, Michael. What I will say, the comment there was not about Mercedes leaving because of creative. The comment was basically saying that Mercedes is strong-willed enough to leave because of creative if she wishes to. Bayley. News on Bayley. Starting with the WWE are thrilled with the reaction to Bayley and a little bit disappointed that they haven't been able to get her on more TV programs such as a press conference. In the weeks to come, WWE have plans to elevate all 3 original members of Damage Control as I mentioned, the year of Bayley begins. That is Io Sky, that is Dakota Kai, that is Bayley. In the next couple of months, it is Dakota Kai's turn to get the rub, and then after WrestleMania it is Bayley's turn to essentially wander into the stratosphere. After WrestleMania there are easy matches ready for Bayley to face Asuka, Kairi Sane, and eventually Dakota Kai. Kai is expected to come out of this significantly elevated. If I'm a betting man, and let's just say I've been right on this before, I suspect that Dakota Kai will turn at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. In some capacity, I don't know what it may be because I don't know if necessarily Bayley's got a match lined up yet. I suspect we may see something like Bayley and Dakota Kai versus Asuka and Kairi Sane. And that is a prime opportunity in Australia for Dakota Kai to turn on Bayley. As I have posted on Twitter, beware the hair. That is a big telling point as to whether or not we have a face Dakota or a heel Dakota. Beware the hair. Lastly, Matt Riddle has come into New Japan and has been slotted into the Will Ospreay role immediately, particularly teaming up already with United Empire, or at least whatever is left of United Empire after their leader has left. Matt Riddle is replacing Will Ospreay. He is essentially going to be slotted into almost exactly the same role and character and will likely be a championship winner through that. What I will say as an aside to that, New Japan are not planning to let him speak very often. Honestly, I can't blame them. Cannot blame them. Right, that was the last comment we had. Just catching up, guys. Moises says AEW doesn't do storytelling, just random matches. Disagree on that one. Very much disagree on that one. Blue says, I'm a fan of New Japan, that's why I watch AEW. How many US New Japan fans aren't watching AEW? The number has to be small, really small. That's not unfair. Especially when there is no boost to their shows when they show up. That's genuinely a fair comment. Blair says, worst WCW gimmick? Shockmaster's up there. Daniela says, Sportskeeda have reported Bronson Reed's cousin has passed away. Condolences to Bronson. Condolences indeed. Cal says, if Vince was in control, do you think Punk would have been brought back? No. Michael points out, quite rightly, AEW storytelling is their matches. There's more than one way of doing things. Blue says, Tony's rant about wrestling fans putting their money where their mouth is made it sound like they had pivoted to trying to appeal to more hardcores than casuals, so they wanted casuals, in my opinion. There was no pivot. At no point had they focused on casuals. At no point. Gold says, I don't understand why Tony Khan is booking shows he has no experience. I don't see Ari Emanuel booking Raw and SmackDown. To be clear, Tony Khan does have experience. He's booked AEW for years. Blue says, I've been beating on the women's tag title turn at Elimination Chamber as well. Razar says, Bayley's been my favourite thing in WWE currently. I'm sad WWE doesn't promote her more. It seems like they're ignoring the whole damage control storyline. They're not. They're just letting it play out without putting too much pressure on it. There's a lot of people who haven't necessarily been in this much spotlight in this storyline at the moment, and they're just taking their time with it. KJ says, the Beware the Hair tweet you made was good. I enjoyed it. I'm very glad I made it. DM says, was Bret Hart eliminating Stone Cold a planned spot in the Rumble 97? Yes. Yes. Alyssa says, how long Asuka Kairi Sane Women Tag Team Champion? Until someone else beats them. Personally, I suspect I'll be WrestleMania. Spider-Boss says, it's annoying to keep reading people say Mercedes money left WWE due to creative differences, or Mercedes money wanted more money than Charlotte. I certainly don't get when people compare Mercedes with CM Punk. The reports that she wanted more money, or as much money as Charlotte, came from Dave Meltzer and Fightful, to my knowledge, and yeah, to my knowledge, not even slightly true. Blue says, AEW does tell stories, I just think you can tell they aren't paced by people with a lot of writing experience. A lot of the stories they tell, let's not forget, are written by the people actively engaging in them, so I wouldn't go that far. 119 people watching, 88 likes, 2 more to 90, 12 more to 100. I'm going to recap our top story now. Going to recap the top story, then catch up with the chat, then we'll be wrapping up. So if we're going to make it to 100, now has to be the time. To recap our top story then, The Rock and Roman Reigns are firmly on the same page. This has been confirmed, particularly as regards the heel turn, by The Rock in having to defend himself against absolute garbage claims from a Fox News affiliated journalist. The WWE Wrestlemania XL reveal trailer is something that they're introducing alongside the things like press conferences with a mind to essentially fill a whole channel's worth of content on Netflix. Long term, they're trying to create more of a sports feel. It would have originally been the weigh-in at the press conference. That would have been used eventually to turn into the trailer. WrestleMania is going to be pushed pretty hard this year for quite a long period of time. Expect more trailers, especially for the big stadium shows like SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble. The pitch that The Rock and Triple H put together is being actively developed as we speak. Nothing is currently finalised, but the current leading pitch has WrestleMania opening with a tag team match. The Rock and Roman Reigns would take on Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Personally, I see the heels winning, potentially with The Rock pinning Cody Rhodes. Now, Roman Reigns would still be defending the championship against Cody Rhodes in the main event of Night 2, meaning that Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes would all be doing double duty. It also means that both World Championships are likely to feature on Night 2. This is why I've been reporting that Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch is back on the agenda as a Night 1 main event. It is a fast evolving situation. Very little is set in stone, and anyone who tells you differently, they are not being honest with you. There is another option currently being discussed, and that is winner take all. A tag team match where The Rock and Roman Reigns could leave with both championships, but so too could Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Let's catch up with the chat. Dan says, terrible timing by me here, but evening anyway. Evening to you, good sir. Nice to see you. Blair says, Tom, can you do a Dusty Rhodes impression? No, I cannot, and I'd feel mean trying it. Michael says, Andrew Zarian hinted to an additional stadium show in the US this year. That'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Spider-Boss says, AEW does good storytelling. The Devil storyline was good. It was extended too much, but delivered after Adam Cole was revealed as the Devil. I know a lot of people talk about Hangman Page as well, and I do think that's worth mentioning. Cal says, I really hope Alexa Bliss uses her Sister Abigail move when she returns. Would be a nice tribute to Bray. Can't wait to see Alexa back. She was unbelievable with Bray. Some of the best work, in my opinion. I think that would be a fitting tribute, yes, if she chooses to return. DM says, Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar should have happened with fans, with live fans. Shame we never got that match. We did get the match, and it's no one's fault, unfortunately. But yeah, it would have been a bit extra. Razar says 2022, 2023 and 2024 have been crazy when it comes to news. What has been the most surprising for you to cover or report? Most surprising was Sasha walking out. Sasha and Naomi walking out. That surprised me the most. Primarily because, and I've got to be honest, you guys don't know everything that I know. I've mentioned John Laurinaitis' part to play in Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out. Would just like to repeat that particular little nugget. Spider-Boss says, if Roman and The Rock leave with all the gold, I see Solo helping them. And Blue says, really want Becky versus Rhea for the main event of Night 1. It is 2 minutes past 11 here in the UK. We've been live for 62 minutes after another good show. Wrapping up, we peaked at 130 viewers. We have 93 likes. This channel continues to absolutely soar. Before we went live, we already had 11 new subscribers today, largely, as I've mentioned, thanks to the brilliant work of our very own Mick Heno. Thank you very kindly, Mick, for your continued support. It is guaranteeing a lot of growth on the channel, and I massively thank you for it. But in the meantime, we will be seeing you on Wednesday for PLE Wednesdays, Thursdays Fun Fact Thursday, and of course on Friday, more spoiler warning. Until then, I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.